guys, welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Leading off the show today, Mark Ellis.
Welcome one and all to the best movie news show in the entire galaxy. Thank you guys for joining us here on Hump Day, and the panel we have today, Ashley, it's such a great collection of people that you may recognize from other Collider programming. Who we got?
Oh yeah, also here, Jon Schnepp.
I want my candy back. Give me my candy. I'm coming for my candy. I saw The Purge election year yesterday.
Uh-oh. Also here, Clarke Wolfe.
Jon Schnepp has not convinced me to see The Purge election year.
Give me my candy. I'm coming for my candy.
What Jon Schnepp lacks in salesmanship, he makes up for in his own show, Collider Heroes. Clarke, you do Collider Nightmares. So Nightmares is on Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
Heroes is on Wednesday.
Today.
We have a new show joining you. You guys are going to be bunkmates on Wednesday because the Top 10 show premieres later on today. You guys can catch it at 2 p.m. in the PST. That's 5 p.m. for you East Coasters. It's hosted by John Roca and Matt Nost. Roca, you guys know, he's guested on this show many times. He's a very, very fervent competitor in the movie Trivia Schmodown. And then Matt Nost is one of my buddies. I've known him for over a decade. He's a hilarious comic, and he also is really knowledgeable about movies. So they're going to do a top 10 show, and they basically count down the top 10 of something. They have a great debate about it. Then they settle on a list at the end of each week. Today, it's going to be the top 10 Steven Spielberg movies of all time in honor of the BFGs. Make sure you guys check that out. Favorite Spielberg movie, real quick?
Jaws.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Very good answers. I was going to go with 1941. I guess I'm in the dark.
No, you
on that
weren't.
one.
No, you weren't.
Always. You're going to go with
Liar.
always.
I was going to go
weren't
with Jaws. I was going to go with Jaws. Okay, what is our first topic today, Ashley? Oh, you know what? Before we get into the rundown, you and I had a little bit of fun before we went to air because we taped our reaction review to the brand new trailer that just hit. Brace yourselves. Trolls is here.
Trolls.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Good God.
That
So,
picture.
Ashley Mova, I'm going to give you the first word on the Trolls trailer. It's the first Trolls trailer to drop.
Just
It's from
one word?
DreamWorks. You get the first word,
I
and
get
then
the
you can have
first
other words
word.
that follow
Okay.
that, and then maybe a punctuation at the
Okay,
end.
I'm gonna go with surprised because I wasn't expecting it to look this way. When I was younger, I don't remember trolls looking like this. I'm intrigued. I want to see more. I just am confused at what the story is going to be because again, she said something about her dad, but then everything was happy. I was confused. So I'm waiting on it to see if I'm gonna buy or sell it.
You know, Clarke, Ashley made a great point when we were filming our reaction, is that most of the time Trolls, they were just pretty much wearing pants, and you were lucky if they were wearing pants.
They were wearing
My
pants.
Most of
my
the time they
trolls
were
did
nude.
wear pants.
Yeah, they were always nude.
They just
They
had
were
that
naked
little
and they had like a
Buddha
belly,
Little
like
belly
star
with,
or something.
yeah, I had treasure trolls.
Oh,
There you go.
Treasure trolls had the little rhinestone on its little belly button.
Even creepier.
No, they were great. Don't worry,
Well,
they
the
were
trolls
are
are steeped in the
horrifying.
mythology of trolls anyway, so how did this trailer suit you?
Okay, so I saw the teaser a couple of months ago, and actually my reaction was yours, where I was like, what the hell is this? This is not what a troll looks like.
exactly.
Get it right. But then I watched this trailer, and I'm kind of embarrassed, but I kind of liked it. And you know, here's what I liked about it. You guys know I like scary things. I like weird creatures. I liked that there were like weird eyeballs and there were like weird snaky snakes that kind of looked like the sandworms from Beetlejuice, except they're like Lisa Frank colors, and that's amazing to me. So I love all of these really bright but scary like creatures. I kind of think that's awesome.
Okay, Schnepp, it's been a rainbow of positivity for the new Trolls trailer so far. Are you going to continue this steam wagon, or are you going to shoot down their dreams?
Let me rain all over this rainbow neon parade and say, look, I remember the trolls from when I was a little kid. They're horrifying, weird mutant creatures with strange hair. I threw them away into the garbage as soon as I could possibly get rid of them. They were possessed, just like the weird creature from Trilogy of Terror. It's like this, you know, you gotta get rid of it. Don't have it in your house. Now they've come up with these like extra colorful, weird, like, strange trolls and all their friends, and they're singing and they're dancing and they're pooping cupcakes, and I can't get into this. I think it's for 5-year-olds.
We'll never look at cupcakes the same way again.
Yeah, there's a creature that poops little cupcakes, and the other one offers them as food. Are you hungry? It's for children. So I'm sorry. It's like if you're like 5 years old and you're watching Movie Talk, go see Trolls. If not, otherwise,
For the young at heart.
Yeah, for the
it's
young
for
at
the
heart.
young at
The ones who
heart.
aren't like that, like bitter old men like myself, I just could not, especially the way they advertise it. They have all the actors, like a shot of like Justin Timberlake. It's like, really?
That seemed a little desperate where they have to remind you that, oh no, there's top name vocal
look at all the people.
In this troll
Parents,
movie.
Please drag your crying children who don't want to see these horrifying neon nightmares, drag them into this pastel destruction of their childhood with like, look, here's some actors who are getting paid a lot of money.
Schnepp, I think you're trolling this movie.
Clearly has not gotten over the purge yet.
That's right. I'm taking it out on the trolls.
For my money, I remember my brother and I went through a brief phase of collecting the troll dolls. They were like the Pop Toys or the Beanie Babies of their day. Mm-hmm. And the coolest one to get, the hardest one to find was the rollerblading troll. Like we had a skateboarding one. The rollerblading one was the unicorn of the troll. We finally landed one. And I think at that point we're like, what do we do with all these? They just sit on a shelf and they don't really bring you
burn
luck.
Them.
You're just sitting in there stroking their hair and you feel creepy. Or
how'd you find it for $500 on eBay?
I don't want to say how much we dropped on it, but damn it, we got that rollerblading beast into his room. So this trailer, it looks like a cash grab to me. It looks like, oh, hey, we made a movie, and now we're going to try to sell more troll dolls. There's no really substance. It's going to be painful to me to watch in the theater. Maybe I see another trailer and it changes my mind, but sorry, Clarke and Ashley. Schnepp and I are rebelling.
We're going to have
fist bump. Ready? Fist bump. Gear shift.
That
was funny. It did make me laugh. Well, and then the cloud peed, and that made me laugh too. Simple things make me laugh, I guess.
Let's do less cloud pee and more gear shifting into our first actual topic today. What's up first?
Thanks to a set of exclusive photos from Looper.com, Tom Holland's Spider-Man was spotted on set in full costume, sporting a backpack and giving away that even superheroes have homework. In the pics, Spider-Man appears to be readying a heroic move on the way back from school and jumping on the back of a construction truck that looks to be rigged for a major stunt. The outlet reports that the running scenes will reportedly be completed using CGI, but the action scenes where Spider-Man jumps onto the truck were pure Holland and not a stunt double. Spider-Man Homecoming will feature Holland, Marissa Tomei, Zendaya, Donald Glover, Michael Keaton, and Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. It comes to theaters July 7, 2017. Mark, what do you think of the first set pics of Tom Holland as Spider-Man?
Well, Ashley, I think that is indeed Tom Holland, and that is indeed the Spider-Man suit, and it looks a lot like the one that we saw in Civil War, so you guys are doing great so far. Keep up the good work. I don't read much into these pictures other than I believe that Tom Holland is on set right now and that he is going to be wearing the suit. I mean, that was a complaint that some people had about Civil War, is that the suit looked a little CGI in the action scenes. And I don't know that you're going to get anything different in Spider-Man Homecoming, but we do know that there is at least some level of practicality that he will be donning the suit in real life from time to time. I think Tom Holland is a great casting choice. I think universally people loved him in Captain America Civil War, so I'm excited about this movie. It's just proof to me that the movie's actually being filmed and not much more. How about you, Schnepp?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to see him in the suit. He's got a bunch of trolls in that backpack. I think he's got at least 3 of those really rare rollerblading trolls. He's on a mission.
3 of them?
Yeah, he's in that pipe. He's delivering them to a bunch of sweaty nerds. Yeah, it's great. I think he looks great in the suit. There's some design elements on this version of the suit that are slightly different. If you want to get really specific and sweaty about it, it's like there's lines on the blue outfit that weren't on the Civil War one. So obviously him and Stark are hanging out and retrofitting the costume and making some more changes. So it's fun to see a real picture as opposed to all that CGI. That's all I can really say about the photos is that actor is in the suit, and that's kind of cool.
Clarke, we have to speculate as to what's in the backpack, but how do you feel about what's actually on the pictures?
Well, what's in the backpack is definitely Gwyneth Paltrow's head, for sure.
What's in the backpack?
What's in the bag?
Collider Nightmares is Clarke Wolfe.
Sorry,
everybody.
I couldn't help it. Look, I agree with both of you guys. I think what we're seeing here is a great example of people making a movie. And like you said, Schnepp, the changes in the suit aren't so you'd have to really be paying attention to notice them. But I do think it's cool to see a real life kid in the costume, and I do kind of like that he has a backpack because it's kind of adorable in a fun way, and I think that signals maybe a little bit of the tone that we're gonna get. We've heard rumors that it's gonna be like a John Hughes kind of coming of age story, and seeing Spider-Man wear a backpack it kind of falls in line with that.
I mean, look, he told Tony Stark in Civil War that, hey, I have homework. I can't just go off on whatever you need me to do. I got studies to do, so at least he's keeping up with the books. Well done, Spidey. Okay, what's our next story?
Deadline is reporting that Daniel Craig is in talks to star opposite Halle Berry and Mustang director Denise Gamze-Erguven's English-language debut, Kings. The project is set against the backdrop of Los Angeles during the Rodney King trial in 1992. Craig will play Ollie, a loner living in South Central who befriends and falls in love with Berry's character, a productive mother looking after her kids. When the riots explode in the city, Craig's character helps Berry try and track down the kids from the worst of the violence as the riots spread across LA, lasting 6 days and leading to 55 deaths in the wake of the acquittal of the policeman who beat King. Erguven's dream has been to make this movie ever since she graduated from the prestigious French Femis Film School. Her debut film, Mustang, was Oscar nominated for Best Foreign Film and was a box office smash in France. A release date for Kings has yet to be set. Schnepp, what do you think about the casting for the LA Riots movie Kings?
It's okay. I mean, Daniel Craig is all right. I'm more excited that the filmmaker's getting a chance to make this film. That's what's more interesting to me. Is it's been something she's wanted to do since she graduated college and has done another film with this one in tow, and now she's actually going to be able to make it. So I'm really interested to see what she's going to make of the LA riots, and it's not just going to be some mindless action film. How is she going to portray the LA riots and the the healing process afterwards, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm more interested in.
I think it's nice to see Halle Berry in a movie. We don't get enough Halle Berry. She's won an Oscar. She's super talented. Yes, she was Catwoman. She made some bad choices in picking roles occasionally. She was in Cloud Atlas, which not everybody loved, but I think that she'll be great in this role. And I think Daniel Craig, it seems like something he can really sink his teeth into after it appeared that he was very bored playing James Bond. So it's a totally different world from what Bond does. So I like this premise. I mean, I don't know how true to any factual story it's going to be other than the backdrop of the LA riots. I don't know if this actual storyline ever took place or you're just using something that happened in real life to tell a fictional story, which I'm not always the biggest fan of, but I tend to agree with you, Schnepp, that it's nice to see somebody who is a young filmmaker get a chance to do a project that is very close to their hearts. So let's give it a shot. How about you, Clarke?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I agree with you, Schnepp. I'm more excited about the premise and the filmmaker behind the scenes than maybe the Daniel Craig casting. But not that I have a problem with Daniel Craig, but I don't know. I'd be very curious to see how he fits into this when we actually see the movie. But it's a really important story to tell, and yeah, I look forward to seeing it.
It seems like we're getting a lot of subject matter based on the LA riots right now. I mean, look, you can't separate the OJ storylines from the LA riots completely, right. And there's been a number. You had the FX series, you had that great miniseries. It was a documentary with featuring the story of OJ on ESPN and ABC recently. And then you also have this other LA riots movie that I believe is coming out still with Ice Cube and his son that wanted to do something that's a little more in the action vein, I believe, with somebody trying to defend their turf. Are we getting too inundated with LA riots movies, Clarke, or do you think that this is going to be able to separate itself from the pack?
No way. I think that these are really important stories to tell. Sure. I think it's about time. It's taken way too long to bring this story to the big screen and to a widespread audience. And I think the more that people can watch this type of story unfold, it's important. It's part of the American conversation right now, and I think that the audience is ready for it. So I think it's good to keep making. And also, look, here's the thing about an event like this in general, like the LA riots. No two people's account of this is going to be the same. This meant so much to not only the LA community, the larger community in the US, and everybody's going to have a different take and a different experience and a different story. And I think all of those stories are important. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Schnepp, do you think part of it is just the time period that it took place in the early 90s, and now that it's 2016, this will probably come out either next year or the year after, that we're able to look back with maybe more of a fairer lens than we were when we were in the heat of that moment?
Well, definitely it takes time to heal from something that horrible and destructive. So 10 years later, now we're 20 years later, it's time to look back at that and maybe revisit it, with a different perspective. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is seeing what kind of perspective the filmmaker is going to put on it.
All right, well, we got some new casting information for an upcoming sci-fi sequel. What's up, Ash?
Alcon Entertainment announced yesterday that Barkhad Abdi, who was nominated for an Academy Award for his performance in Captain Phillips, has joined the production of the upcoming Blade Runner sequel. He joins a cast that includes Harrison Ford, Ryan Gosling, Robin Wright, Ana de Armas, and Dave Bautista. The Blade Runner sequel is set several decades after after the 1982 original, with Harrison Ford reprising his iconic role as Rick Deckard. The film is written by Hampton Fancher and Michael Green and is directed by Sicario and Prisoners director Denis Villeneuve, reuniting him with cinematographer Roger Deakins. Principal photography is scheduled to begin in July with a release date set for October 6, 2017. Clarke, what do you think about the addition of Barkhad Abdi in Blade Runner 2?
I think this is great. I mean, I think first of all, his performance in Captain Phillips was fantastic. I think the more Oscar nominees you can add to a project like this, the better. And I think too, from the names that have already been announced, there's a real diverse look to everybody. And I like that because it is a futuristic world. And I think this type of representation is important. But also, he's a really talented actor. And I think having an not just an American presence, I think that's also important. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you because you're adding talent to something that I'm intrigued to see. Now, look, I haven't seen the original Blade Runner yet. Schnepp, please don't hit me. I've not seen Blade Runner yet. I will check it out, the director's cut, before this movie comes out. But Clarke's absolutely right. She hit the nail on the head when you're talking about casting diversity in a futuristic world. It's nice to see this. And I also like when you have somebody who we know from an iconic now role, maybe iconic's a little too strong, but everybody knows that line, I'm the captain now, from Captain Phillips. So can this actor transition out of that, or will he be typecast as the same kind of person? Will he be a villain here? Will he be a hero? Will it just be some mysterious person we meet and we're not sure what his motives are? I'm excited that he's in the movie, so it gives me yet another reason I want to check out all of the Blade Runner films. How about you?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, casting this guy, he's a cool character actor, so I'm interested to see. I'm sure they're going to fit him in pretty well into the Blade Runner universe. When you finally see the original Blade Runner, Mark, you'll see there's a lot of areas for interesting looking character actors to fit into this futuristic world. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm seriously hoping Harrison Ford keeps that full beard. He's like looking like a mountain man right now, walking around. I'm like, hey, you guys are going to start shooting in literally like 10 days or something like that. You keeping that beard, son? I think he is. That would be amazing to see him like with a giant beard, like I'm a replicant, So anyway, yeah, I'm into the casting.
How do you sell somebody on Blade Runner? I mean, I know it's one of these sci-fi movies that everybody talks about, and it's a classic, but I keep hearing that I might be bored. People are worried that I'm going to be bored watching this movie.
Here's the easiest way to...
Is that them judging me as a viewer?
Yes, that's them judging you. Seriously. Intelligent people who love cinema love Blade Runner.
I'm on the fringe
the easiest statement that I could say. It's one of the greatest science fiction films ever made. And it's an incredibly intelligent film. It's not an action movie. And like when I went and saw it, I was 12. I saw it and I was like, I thought it was going to be like Han Solo shooting lasers and stuff like that. And so I was taken aback. I was bored and I didn't know what I was watching. Years later, when I was in college, saw it one of many of the possibly hundreds of times that I've seen it now. I love the film. I think it's an exploration into our culture, which is right now, which is the greatest thing that science fiction is. It's a magnification of what our society is right now and looking at what could happen if we do the wrong thing. Or, that's the greatest thing about science fiction. So I'm seriously hoping that Blade Runner 2, which has one of the original writers, Hampton Fancher, came back to work on this one. Doesn't have David Peoples in it, who's the guy who came up with the name Replicant. It's hopefully a worthy sequel to the original Blade Runner. So I'm looking forward to it as probably the highlight of any science fiction film for myself. And if it sucks, I'll still have the original. That's how I look at sequels when they don't work out too well. You always have the original one that's there.
Schnepp, where do you stand on the Blade Runner theatrical cut versus director's cut? Because I'm not going to lie to you. I watched this movie a couple of years ago, and I watched the theatrical cut, and I didn't love it the way that I wanted to love it, or I thought that I would love it as a fan of genre, and as I've heard so many of my friends who I share taste with said. So where do you stand on that? Because I've heard some people say the director's cut is the only definitive way to watch it, but do you think it makes that much difference?
It does to a certain degree, but it depends. I mean, The theatrical cut has voiceover by Harrison
Right.
Ford. It's done very much more like a gumshoe kind of detective kind of thing because they were trying to rework it because they were afraid people would need to like be kind of spoon-fed the story because it's it's open. It gives you a lot of room to interpret things. I think the director's cut strips out that voiceover and leaves you a little bit. It's a little headier. It gives you a little more room to interpret things, and there's a few things that are inserted in there to kind of focus a little bit more attention on who's a replicant, who's not a replicant, things like that. So I like both versions. I would say, if you had to watch one, watch the director's cut.
All I heard is that there's no lightsabers in it. I'll still watch it anyway, but I go in with a little bit of trepidation. And now we move on to music news. What's up?
During Collider.com's recent set visit to Justice League, producer Deborah Snyder confirmed that Tom Holland, aka Junkie XL, will return to the DC Films universe to score Justice League. Holland is one of the fastest rising film composers at the moment, working on scores for Divergent, 300, Rise of an Empire, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But it was his score for Mad Max Fury Road that made the strongest impression with fans, leading to his work on 2 superhero flicks, Deadpool and Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Justice League is set to hit theaters on November 17, 2017. Schnepp, are you happy to hear that Junkie XL will return to score Justice League?
I am certainly happy to hear that Junkie XL, I just want to be able to say that a couple times, Junkie XL is going to be scoring Justice League. He did a great job in Mad Max Fury Road, and he did a great job with Hans Zimmer on Batman v Superman. His additional scores and stuff really were highlights of that score for the movie, and I love the score of Mad Max. So he's been doing a lot of great things. I'm not going to hold The Amazing Spider-Man to along came a Spider-Man. That, everyone has, like some, bad stuff happen. But you know what? All the good stuff outweighs that, so I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, I buy this as well. First of all, I buy that if your name's Tom Holland, you should go by Junkie XL. I also buy that he's going to be doing Justice League because the score of B versus S was one of the highlights to me. I thought it was great the entire way through. I thought he really hit the different tones that movie had in it. So I'm excited about this. And obviously Mad Max it's going to become a legendary score because not only you had all this great action on screen, but you do need something to accompany it or else it just feels flat, and he perfectly accentuated all of those great road battles that we got, not to mention you did have a kick-ass guy playing guitar and powering a locomotive, so that was pretty sweet.
A giant truck with giant dudes like drumming the whole thing. That was just incredible.
It made me want to be a musician even more. Clarke, do you buy this? Oh, we're not buying yet, but do you just like this?
I do like it. I like it and I buy it. I agree with you, Mark. One of my favorite parts of Batman v Superman was the score, and so I think that's great. And you guys have said it. You guys have said it all. I mean, Mad Max is incredible, and the music is incredible and interesting. And I think it's a good sign for. I think it's cool that Warner Brothers is staying loyal and they want to keep working with him. It's obviously they're pulling him onto these really high-profile projects. So I think they definitely have confidence in him.
We haven't said it all, but we've said most of it, and for the rest of it, we go over to Wendy Lee, who's been monitoring the chat room. So not only do we want to hear about Junkie XL, but I want to go all the way back to us breaking the news that the Trolls trailer had dropped. What was the chat room saying about the Trolls and our other main topics, Wendy?
Well, the chat room definitely was not feeling the Trolls trailer. Some said that it looks like I'm sorry, Clarke. Looks like a wannabe Minion movie is what some of them are saying. For the Tom Holland in Spider suit story, for the most part, everybody's liking the suit. Someone didn't think it looked that great, saying he's seeing better cosplay. KenDog909 says, I love these set photos for Spidey. I think it's great. He's saving the day right after the school. Totally dope. Can't wait for Homecoming. For the King's movie story, there is a little bit of back and forth in the chat discussion about whether the casting choice is good or not. Joe Joseph 461 says, love through the riots. I don't like it when they do this. Don't make a movie using this as background, especially when it's something like this. For Blade Runner 2, looks like a lot of people liked Barkhad Abdi in Captain Phillips, and they're happy to see him getting some more work, but not everybody is a fan of a sequel. Time Signature MMA says, to be honest, I don't need a second Blade Runner film. I think the original one was a self-contained story. And finally, for the Junkie XL to return to score for Justice League, well, just to give my opinion, I really like the Wonder Woman score, and he also did the Deadpool score as well. And it looks like the chat is on board with this as well. Kyle S says, I loved his work in Mad Max. Hope he delivers on Justice League as well.
I didn't know Wendy was a fan of Wonder Woman. Did anybody?
Yeah, weird.
I wasn't aware of that.
That's
That's pretty Oh, I see it now. The chat room, while you were reading the other chat room comments, the chat room was going crazy. Then they were calling her Wonder Wendy. So you've earned it, Wendy. Now we move on to buy or sell. Sometimes I jump the gun and I just buy our main topics because I just have that much money to spend because they pay me
throwing money around
here.
Crazy stuff.
You don't just get $6 an hour.
Making it rain,
you got to earn that stuff. So now I'm going to peel off some more dollar bills, hopefully with buy or sell. This is where Ashley's going to give us a topic. We say whether we buy it or sell it. Then we start throwing some elbows defending our picks. What do we got first?
In a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy dropped a fairly big tidbit about Rogue One that many fans missed. Apparently, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, may not include the iconic opening crawl fans have come to expect for a Star Wars universe film. Based on her comments to EW, however, it looks as though the discussions about it are ongoing. Kennedy said, "It's something that we're right in the midst of discussing even now." So I don't want to say definitively what we're doing. The crawl and some of those elements live so specifically within the saga films that we are having a lot of discussion about what will define the standalone Star Wars stories separate and apart from the saga films. So we're right in the middle of talking about that. If no crawl is utilized for the Star Wars story, it might set the stage for the standalone films and spill over into other films like the young Han Solo outing slated for 2018. For now, fans will have to wait and see what the powers that be at Lucasfilm decide when Rogue One, a Star Wars story, hits theaters on December 16th. Mark, buy or sell the idea of Rogue One not using the opening crawl for the movie.
I buy Ray as the best.
Right.
Yeah,
Ray.
Well done there, Raymond. As far as this story, man, am I torn about this. I couldn't sleep last night because, yes, I was wondering if they're going to be using the crawl text for Rogue One and then wondering how I felt about it. So there's two different pieces of information, or at least two different opinions we can have here. So first of all, I want to say that I am ever so slightly leaning towards buying the fact that they are going to use a crawl text in Rogue One because they're having ongoing discussions. So I think that they're going to lean towards keeping the crawl text in there. I know that the crawl text isn't used in Rebels. I know that there's a lot of other Star Wars stuff like the comic books where they do use the crawl text, and of course in the main films. But I think it's the right idea to keep the crawl text in there, if for no other reason, because look, we're going to a galaxy far, far away. It is great to have a little bit of context, especially when you consider that all of these Star Wars anthology or story films are going to be one-offs. Maybe they spin off into their own franchise, like you have 3 Han Solo movies or 3 Obi-Wan movies. But for Rogue One, it'd be nice to get some backstory in here so that the characters don't have to waste 20 or 30 minutes explaining all of that stuff, and we can get right into the action. It's one of the things I've always loved about Star Wars, that when you sit in a theater, you get that huge bombastic opening, and it shuts everybody who's watching the movie up. You're instantly locked in. You have to do a little bit of reading so everybody stops talking, and it just sets up this world so perfectly. So as a Star Wars fan, I would love to see them continue to use the crawl text in the anthology movies. I don't think it's necessary, okay? If I hear that they're going to drop it, I'm not going to not see Rogue One. You know, I'm still going to be just as excited, but I do think the crawl text makes it more Star Wars, if that makes any sense. Clarke, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I do agree with you. So I on the one hand, I do think that establishes that it's part of this universe. And it's part of that movie going experience to watch the movie, the credits roll, here comes the crawl text. But on the other hand, I do understand kind of the idea of keeping that separate. And I wonder if they don't do the crawl text, if they would initiate or bring in another type of background story. Because I think or means of delivering the background. Because I think what you're saying is really important. The idea that you have to set up exactly where we are in the Star Wars universe and then launch into it. So I wonder if there's like an alternative to the crawl text that maybe they're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan. I'm not sure if there's another way to keep time. If you can say like, oh, this takes place 5 years before that, or if there's like a time like in the year 3048 is when all this stuff takes place. I don't know when that happens. So I think that a crawl text is necessary. I do understand the point that you're trying to separate yourself from the main episodes. And when you do see the crawl text, it comes up Star Wars and it says episode whatever. So you have to replace that with something, and you have to make that something that the fans appreciate. Whether you just say Star Wars, then it just says Rogue One, and there's no episode there, whatever. We go right into it.
I got it.
What do you got?
You have like Salacious Crumb with a little golden book that says a Star Star Wars story. And he's like opening it up, and then you like kind of zoom into it.
Hello, I'm Salacious Crumbs.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into
That's right.
Star Wars. He's sitting by a fire,
Yeah,
having a whiskey.
little Star Wars masterpiece theater combination.
I don't hate this idea. As a matter
he's
of
got
fact,
a monocle.
I love it.
He's like, well, hello there. No. Sorry, just kidding. You know what? You convinced me that I think that it has to have the crawl. Originally, I was like, I don't know if I really care that much. It's called a Star Wars story. Are they going to still have Star Wars come out, but a story underneath it? That would be weird. It should still say Star Wars when we see the film. And then if it does have the crawl, I don't know if it's necessary for it to say a Star Wars story within the crawl.
You can just say Rogue One.
And then, but I think you're right, man. That is kind of the branding of Star Wars. And I know that their inner circle is saying, well, this is part of the Skywalker story and the prequels, and now the farther along sequels. We'll have these 9 or maybe 12 stories that are all the Skywalker family story, and these are going to be standalone things. But I think it's inherently Star Wars. It's burned into like the excitement of seeing a Star Wars movie is getting that little crawl. And you're absolutely right. It gives you that backstory that you do not have to wait. Precious time is exposition in a Star Wars film. And that's what you learned in Star Wars movies. You don't need exposition. You show with action. That's one of the key things. Is you don't need somebody talking and walking along the street when you can just get to the door and you're already inside. You don't have to show them knocking on the door and maybe he's not here. Should I call them? Or they're just walking in. They're entering the place. I think the crawl is part of it, and so I would be sad to see it not part of any Star Wars movie. So I'll buy that they keep the Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, go back and watch A New Hope, and when it originally came out, A New Hope, it wasn't Episode 4, and it wasn't it was just Star Wars. But when you read that crawl text, it gives you a lot of information about the world you're about to enter. And yes, that was the first time we ever saw this galaxy far, far away. But I still think that it lends some sort of necessary context. I wish I was in the room talking about this with Kathleen Kennedy and the brain trust at Lucasfilm, because they're having these conversations right now. I don't know that they'll let us know when they settle on something, but I think that all of our votes are for keeping the crawl text. But it's an interesting debate to have, and I'm sure you guys are going to have it
Kathleen
amongst
Kennedy,
yourselves.
listen to Mark Ellis. He's a Star Wars sweaty. We all think you should keep the crawl. Like our opinion matters.
And I really like your movies. Thank you so much for making them. Okay, what's our next buy or sell?
Daniel Radcliffe is currently making the rounds to promote Swiss Army Man, and during one of the interviews with Radio Times, he was asked if he would ever return to the wizarding world that made him famous, Harry Potter. The question was posed whether Radcliffe would be up for playing Harry Potter again, to which he offered up this answer, which should keep fans at bay for just a little while. It would depend on the script. The circumstances would have to be pretty extraordinary. But then I am sure Harrison Ford said that with Han Solo, and look what happened there. So I'm saying no for now, but leaving room to backtrack in the future. For now, fans can hope that there will be a chance for Daniel Radcliffe to return as a grown-up Harry Potter, and that J.K. Rowling herself will write a story that will focus on his later years. Meantime, you can catch Radcliffe in Swiss Army Man playing in theaters now. Clarke, buy or sell Daniel Radcliffe ever returning as Harry Potter?
I buy it. I mean, I think that what's cool about what Daniel Radcliffe has been able to do, he was very aware from a business and career standpoint that he was going to need to break out of the Harry Potter, being known as Harry Potter for the rest of his life. And I think, especially considering Swiss Army Man, he has successfully done that. Especially for an iconic child actor, not only does he seem fairly well adjusted, but he is taking risky roles, he's taking funny roles, he's taking dark roles. And I really and truly believe that most people do not only think of Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter at this point. So I like the idea that he'd be open to returning to it because he can do it. And I think that shows too that he has a true affection and affinity for the thing that really launched his career and launched him. And it's very easy for people to get a chip on their shoulder and say, no, I'm over it. Like, that's not who I am. I'm not 12 years old anymore. Shut it down. Forget it. But I like that he's open to it, so I buy it.
He seems like a guy whose career is doing just fine, where he can do bigger movies that get more notice, like Now You See Me Too, or he can do Swiss Army Man, which we know is the farting corpse movie, but I hear it's very, very good. Maybe he also poops cupcakes. We'll have to wait on that. Schnepp, do you buy or sell we're ever going to see Daniel Radcliffe on screen as Harry Potter?
I buy it. He's an incredible actor. I got a chance when I was in New York to see him in Equus with Halle. We went to go see that.
I
Fantastic.
didn't know you saw that.
Yeah, fantastic.
There was a lot of skin in that, don't he?
There he was, yeah. running around naked. He's fearless. He's a great actor. I mean, he's got so much range. Check him out in Ricky Gervais, like poking fun at Ricky Gervais. So, like, you know, I think he's a great actor. He's got many other films he's going to be in. He's not. This doesn't cap him off as the farting corpse. I can't wait to see Swiss Army Man, though. The trailer makes me laugh. So that he has that appreciation of the films that put him in the ability to be in all these different kinds of films. It is those Harry Potter films. And if J.K. Rowling decides to come back to Harry Potter and write some more books, you know that Warner Bros. Give me that stuff. We need to feed the the Harry Potter universes that we are all going and drinking the butter beer and all that stuff. So we need to feed that. And he's like, look, I'm there. If the script is there, and you know Rowling's going to write a beautiful script if she's going to talk about the older Harry Potter and what he has to deal with, and maybe, you know, who knows what it'll be, but I buy that he wants to be coming back for it.
And I buy this too, because I think that eventually, I think Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is going to do very, very well. I think that anything that's released in the Harry Potter universe, regardless of what the time period is spells box office. And I think that eventually you gotta believe that J.K. Rowling has stories in her head of continuing this wizard with him. Like, he mentioned Han Solo, and it's like in that passing on the torch or wand, as it were, to a new generation, that I think that I start to lick my chops when I hear that we could see Harry Potter. I think it'll be a long time before you see it. I think it's going to be even in the next 20 years.
20 years.
But he didn't say no forever. He said no for now. I think that was a smart play by Daniel Radcliffe. He knows what he's doing. Maybe we'll see him again sometime. All right, now it's time for opening this week. No, it's not. It's time for Rewind. Let's just rewind that. No, we are live, and we're going to keep going. These are the movies that have opened 10 and 20 years ago on this very weekend. So, Ashley, what has come out a decade and 2 decades ago?
Well, 10 years ago, there was Superman Returns and The Devil Wears Prada. And then 20 years ago, there was Independence Day and Phenomenon.
Okay, Independence Day is the big one because we just got that god-awful sequel to it. I still maintain that Independence Day, when it came out, was an event. It was one of the biggest event films of the entire decade. And a lot of the reason why is because, we get a lot of comic book movies now and stuff like that, like these big tentpole movies. Independence Day came out, and we didn't have a whole lot of stuff like that. Like, Star Wars was basically dead in the 90s until we got Phantom Menace in 99. And Independence Day was one of those movies that it was fun, it was big, it had great visual effects, you had awesome personalities. Will Smith going into his prime. You had Jeff Goldblum, who wasn't that far removed from us all loving him in Jurassic Park. So many laughs, so much fun in that movie. It was a great time. I probably saw that thing 3 or 4 times in the theater. And then as far as 10 years ago, I remember Superman Returns and seeing it and loving the John Williams theme being back. I loved when I got to hear those strokes on the big screen. I thought the plane rescue scene was pretty sweet, and then that movie fell off the rails for me in the last third, so I wasn't a huge Superman Returns fan. But Independence Day, despite whatever your franchise does to me now as an adult, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for the first one. How about you, Clarke?
Yeah, you guys know I love Independence Day, but I think that movie really solidified a lot of people's careers. It solidified Will Smith as Will Smith is 4th of July. You know, if you grow up in a certain time period like I did, if it's 4th of July weekend, we're getting a Will Smith movie. And I missed that, to be honest with you. And also Roland Emmerich. I mean, not to say he wasn't doing things before, but that movie, I think, really solidified him as that guy to bring that kind of entertainment. I don't want to skip over, what was the other one?
Devil Wears Prada was 10 years ago, and then Phenomenon was
Phenomenon.
Also 20
I'll
years
skip
ago.
over Phenomenon. But Devil Wears Prada, I definitely wanted to mention too. That movie did a lot, surprising, and it was very well received. Meryl Streep got an Oscar nomination for that movie. I rewatched it recently. I didn't love it. You know, I read the book. I liked the book. I didn't love the movie, but I rewatched it recently, and it still holds up. It's a really nice. It's a good story about a girl growing up and kind of coming to terms with what she wants and what she doesn't want. And I like that. Emily Blunt. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
That introduced me to Emily Blunt.
Yeah, that was the big one. Her big intro.
And she was hilarious. But I also want to, what was the other? Oh, Superman Returns. Okay. I did not like Superman Returns. I don't think it's aged well. But I want to say, and I've said this before, that of all the problems I had with Superman Returns, Brandon Routh was not one of them. Right. No. I thought he was a great Superman, and I thought he was an even better Clark Kent. And I know it doesn't say a lot about your Superman movie if the love triangle is the most interesting part. But for me, I did like seeing the way they played off Lois and James Marsden's character and Superman played off each other. I like Brandon Routh in this role. I wish he could have gotten to do more. I am not a big Bryan Singer fan, and I think really Bryan Singer holds the blame for Superman Returns, not Brandon Routh, and I think he kind of paid the price for it.
All right, Schnepp, 10, 20 years ago, what do you got?
Well, I love Devil Wears Prada. Clarke summed it up really great. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Never seen it.
You haven't seen it?
Never seen it.
All right. Well,
it's actually a good movie.
Superman Returns, I fell asleep twice in the theater. It's boring. He lifts a kryptonite planet at the end of the film. It's stupid. It's a horrible Superman film. You could watch it and it's great cinematography and there's really fun elements and a few cool scenes. Spacey as Lex Luthor was great as Lex Luthor, but he wasn't really given anything to do except buy dirty kryptonite rocks at the end.
Spacey as Gene Hackman.
Oh my God.
I mean,
yeah, it's just kind of, especially, you're right, it doesn't age well. It's like there are some people who are revisionists, who are coming back and saying, oh, that movie is one of the better Superman movies. It's not. It's a horrible Superman movie, and it's not even that good of a film as it is. It's just very boring and kind of doesn't make really any sense. They set all this stuff up and then continue to make plot and script problems all the way through the end, where you have Superman basically lifting the thing that will kill him and make him have no powers, kryptonite, but he's lifting literally a giant mountain of it into space. I mean, he lifts things throughout the entire film. So if you like watching Superman lift things, that movie is for you.
That is one of his qualities.
Yeah, he lifts about 30 things. He lifts the Daily Planet logo. He lifts a couple of, cars.
Airplane.
It's incredible how many things he lifts. Check it out. It's action-packed lifting. Independence Day, love that movie. Saw it July 4th, opening weekend. I was still living in Chicago at the time, but I was out here on a job in 1996. And me and my gal at the time went to see that film, and it was an incredible experience. I loved it. It was one of the greatest popcorn films that you could possibly see, like us versus the aliens, uniting the whole planet. That was Roland Emmerich when he still had his, I think, his directing abilities and a skill set that was still there. If you look at some of his really early work, like Moon 44, check that out, Sweaties. That's actually a kind of a fun, low-budget film that's set on the moon with Michael Pare, and it's like a cool science fiction film. And he was slowly getting his chops to make an Independence Day, and then everything kind of went downhill for him. He's just exploding stuff left and right. Now he's gonna, what else do you have left to explode?
He's gonna make the moon fall.
Yeah, Moonfall.
But you said Michael Pare. He played Eddie Wilson, kids.
That's
Eddie and the Cruisers.
Right, Eddie
Great
and the Cruisers,
movie.
baby. So that's it. Phenomenon. I don't have nothing to say about.
Wendy, I want to go to you in the chat room because I want to see the chat's opinion on Superman Returns, but then I also want to get their take on the Star Wars Rogue One, whether we need a crawl text or not.
Well, let's go ahead and start with Rewind. So they're saying that they're liking all the movies that's listed up there, except for Superman Returns. They're saying it's boring, casting was bad, Kate Bosworth was bad. Nobody liked it. They basically echoed your thoughts for you guys on the panel. Going back to the Rogue One story, the chat's really divided on this. Some say it's not a Star Wars story without a crawl, and some are saying that it's separate from the main story, so the crawl is not necessary. Seth the Nerd said it'll set a precedent for all the other spin-off movies. We'll need a crawl for the Han Solo film or an Old Republic film. And for Daniel Radcliffe, ever returning as Harry Potter, looks like the Potter fans in the chat is buying this. Bryce Radcliffe says, I buy Daniel Radcliffe returning to Harry Potter. In 20 or 30 years, I want a reboot with the same cast like The Force Awakens for Harry Potter.
A lot of rads and a lot of clips in the chat room.
Right.
Thank you guys for your continued participation. And now we have a special treat, or at least it's a contest I've been hawking for a while now. Yes, you guys still have a chance to enter our Comic-Con contest. This is where you and a friend can win airfare for 2, hotel accommodations, and 2 badges to San Diego Comic-Con this July. We're also going to throw $250 in spending money your way. That, I believe, buys a Harry Potter replica wand, or at least a lot of troll dolls, or maybe half of a rollerblading troll, because they're very rare. If you guys want to enter the contest, you have a couple days left to do it. So make sure you check out the link in this vid's description for all the details on how to enter, or just go to collider.com. We'll see you in San Diego this summer, hopefully. Okay, Ashley, now we move on to Mailbag. This is where you guys have sent us your emails, collidervideo@gmail.com. What do we got up first?
Sterling Jones writes, greetings with the passing of Buddy Ryan, NFL coach, and Pat Summitt, coach, University of Tennessee. What actors have in your mind done a really good job playing coaches in a movie? Mine are Gene Hackman in Hoosiers and Denzel Washington and Will Patton in Remember the Titans. Have a good day.
Hoosiers.
There's
Sorry.
Yoga Hosers.
Yeah, Hosers. That's a
Hosers,
Canadian.
And then there's Hoosiers.
Canada.
You know, I knew I was going to screw
It's
that
the
one up.
official people of Indiana.
I had to
They
remember
call
it.
themselves.
I had to
Canada.
do it.
Who's your daddy?
Who's your
right.
daddy?
That's right.
Oh.
You know, I love this question for a number of reasons. One, it gives me a chance to talk about sports for a minute.
Oh,
Pat
God.
Summitt is one of the great coaches of all time, male or female. She belongs on a Mount Rushmore of great coaches. Buddy Ryan, somebody I hated as a kid because the Eagles played my division. But when you grow up and you appreciate the greatness of Buddy Ryan and the 46 defense, there's a reason why the 85 Bears were so dominant, and it's largely because of Buddy Ryan. Man, I didn't like him as a head coach, though. Okay, sorry you passed. Now we move on to the movie coaches, and I have a couple great basketball ones to kick off things. I love Coach Finstock. There's a guy named Finstock that you probably know. He is based on Coach Finstock from Teen Wolf.
That's what I
in
was gonna
1985. Oh, was it
That was
really?
mine.
Finstock's so funny. He only has a couple lines in the movie, but he's just so funny when he delivers them. And then another great basketball coach was Pete Bell, Nick Nolte's character in Blue Chips, which starred Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway. So those are my basketball ones. As far as football, I will take the Gene Hackman out of basketball and put him in to a football movie where he coached The Replacements, which was very,
love The
very
Replacements.
loosely based on the 1987 NFL strike shortened season when the Redskins did in fact go to Dallas and win a game against the real Dallas Cowboys. Huge victory for the Scabs. Jon Schnepp.
Yeah.
You
Hey,
have some fictional coaches.
I got a couple of
You're not
coaches.
the biggest sports guy in the world.
No, I'm not.
But you love sports movies like
Yeah.
anybody does, right?
I do, of course. I've seen a bunch of sports films. You know, Welcome Back, Kotter. Remember Vinnie Barbarino? That's John Travolta. He had a teacher named Gabe Kaplan, and he was in a basketball movie that I can't remember, but I remember seeing it, not really liking it too much. That's not my pick. My pick is The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds, and him training the mean green fighting machine to fight all the prison guards in that football stadium in that prison is a really funny film, and I love that. He's my favorite coach that I could think of. I think Yoda is a great coach. He trains Luke Skywalker
Very
really
true.
well, makes him lift try not, lift that X-Wing, dude. You give up too easy, right? So it's good coaching. Let Luke become the Jedi that he finally became. I would also say Jor-El, going back to Superman, very good coaching techniques. Got to go out to the North Pole, get into some crystalline rock areas, freeze for a while. I don't know how many years he was out there learning about all the Kryptonian stuff. Good coaching, Jor-El and Yoda.
Yeah, I mean, he always seemed like that dad that pushes their kid to play sports, a little too hard, in my opinion, with Jor-El. Maybe Kal-El just wanted to be a writer for the Daily Planet, but Jor-El made him be a superhero. The movie you're thinking of was Fast Break, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Gabe
Fast
Kaplan
Break. Gabe
as the
Kaplan,
basketball
baby.
coach. Clarke, Wolfe, I took your earlier pick, unbeknownst to myself at the time. So who else do you think is a great movie coach?
Well, in addition to Bobby Finstock, which, as I said, I did the Christian Harloff podcast yesterday and grew up on Teen Wolf, so Wolf, obviously. But I wanted to throw some baseball managers out there. Manager Dugan, Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own.
Jimmy Dugan.
Jimmy
Nice.
Dugan is fantastic. And the Bad News Bears.
Oh, yeah. Walter Matthau. Bam. Awesome.
And then finally, for anyone else who is about my age and seen the movie Bring It On, these are Spirit Fingers.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
You know what I'm talking
Of
about?
course, I know what you're talking about.
Their dance coach is fabulous.
And he would do this hip thrust.
I did not expect to bring it on in this segment,
Wow.
but I guess we were proved wrong there. I'll tie that up in a nice bow and also reference, of course, you can't forget Pat Morita as the coach in The Karate Kid. Kind of going along with your Yoda
Sure.
claim. And then Mick, Rocky's trainer. I mean, he's kind of
Hell
a
yeah.
coach enough, so I think that
Yes.
counts as well.
Fully.
A lot of great coaches, a lot of evil coaches out there, too. Bud Kilmer from Varsity Blues. Whew,
yeah.
bad guy. Not a big fan of him, but great performance. Okay, Ash, what's our other mailbag question?
Russell G writes, Collider Movie Crew. Recently, I've been trying to think of movies in different settings or just as a different genre and reference to the 22 Jump Street MIB crossover. Is there a movie that you think could possibly work or do better if the film was made for a different genre, like Ghostbusters being turned into a horror film? Thanks and keep up the great work.
I would have said The Godfather trailer, or Goodfellas as a comedy, but then they tried to do that as a spoof movie with Mafia, and it didn't work all that well. Something that we brought up at our pre-production meeting was, I just said, okay, so if like The Exorcist was a comedy, and then Clarke Wolfe, and I remembered that it was actually turned into a spoof
Repossessed.
movie starring Leslie Nielsen.
Yep, and Linda Blair.
Linda Blair reprised her role in The Exorcist, in Repossessed, and it's not the best spoof movie you'll ever see, but it's a nice attempt at it. So I like when spoof movies take something serious like Top Gun and Into Hot Shots, which is an all-time classic performance by Lloyd Bridges, in my opinion. So Schnepp, if I give you a movie and you want to spin it into a different genre, what are you taking?
I would say, I mean, films that have already happened. You have the horror franchises like Frankenstein, and then you had Mel Brooks taking Young Frankenstein, which is one of the all-time best films ever made, comedy films. You gotta see it if you haven't seen it. So you have a lot of those. What you're talking about, you have a vampire film, all of a sudden you got once bitten or twice bitten. I can't even remember how many bittens it is. Third time bitten, whatever. They have a bunch of these different, like, you know, spin-off knockoffs. You have a bunch of the ones that after a scary movie, there were a lot of these kind of conglom, like once I was in a park with this other thing, blah, blah, blah. You know, most of those didn't really work too well. I would love to see someone take like a Raiders of the Lost Ark and make a science fiction film out of it, where it's like a galaxy away. There's these people looking for some. Oh wait, they did the Guardians of the Galaxy. They already did it.
They took your idea and they made a crap load of money on it. You should have gotten on that train a few years ago. You know, Back to the Future, I thought always worked as like a horror movie too, or like a Twilight Zone where you just go back. But what if Marty McFly can't find Dr. Emmett Brown in the phone book and he's just stuck in 1955? Would he end up sleeping with his mom? If he never got back to 1985, we know his mom's in.
They made it, man. It's called Looper.
Very good.
Yep.
Okay, damn. I was trying to think of an original one. All right, Clarke.
I was thinking about fairy tales. So I think, like original fairy tales are a little darker than they've been presented in the mainstream. But I always like it when they try and do a darker version of the fairy tale that the Disney
Rumpelstiltskin.
Exactly. Or Schnepp, back on AMC, we did your show with Alicia Malone. We talked about In the Company of Wolves.
Oh, yeah. Love that film.
I love it, too. It's a Neil Jordan movie, but it is the Red Riding Hood story, but as a fantasy horror movie. And I love when they do that kind of stuff.
Freeway is actually a little Red Riding Hood story told through Reese Witherspoon as a prison.
Right.
It's like, what a crazy film with Kiefer Sutherland as the big bad wolf. You got to see Freeway if you've never seen it.
You know what the genius of Pixar is? That they can take a premise like Toy Story and make it a lighthearted family comedy. That's a horror movie, kids, and it stars Chucky, and occasionally he's got a bride or he's got something else going on with him. But go see Child's Play. Come back and watch Toy Story. Tell me if that's not freaky.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because the original question actually mentioned Ghostbusters as a horror film, and Dan Aykroyd wanted Ghostbusters to be much scarier than it actually ended up being. And I've heard from Paul Feig that this new Ghostbusters movie is going to play up the horror a little bit more, which I would love. Because I think it makes sense. Like, let's make these ghosts scary. Like, let's be, even though we ain't afraid of no ghosts, let's make them scary.
I can't wait to see Leslie Jones kick some ghost ass.
Oh my God, I'm with you.
I'm 100%. So I'm sold on the new Ghostbusters. I cannot wait.
I just want it to be good. Just please be good.
I think it's going to be great.
If you guys want to have some fun on YouTube right now, the Google Dumb and Dumber as a drama. Somebody sent it to me. Somebody cut together scenes from Dumb and Dumber and as like a hard-hitting drama.
Really? Awesome.
It is hysterical because it actually, you see what great actors Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels are with different music, and they cut some scenes together, and it looks like something is going to make you cry.
I love those revisionist trailers, like the Mary Poppins horror trailer, or The Shining as like a coming of age family story.
That's a great one.
You Google these trailers; they're hilarious, and they're really. But like you said, I mean, it's really fun to see like your favorite movies completely genre switched.
It's a lot of fun to talk movies, regardless of what genre they're in. Now let's move on to live Twitter questions. We only have time for a couple, so Ashley, we're going to cap it at 2. We got 2 Twitter questions.
All right.
You guys can always tweet us a Collider video. We're going to take 2 right now. What do we got?
Stanley Williams Jr. writes, are there any directors whose movies started out bad but progressively got better?
Any directors who, like, their first couple movies were hit or miss, and then they really had one that just broke the bank in a good way. It's you know what? It's easier to think of directors who started making out good movies and then just started to have like a downhill slide.
You know what? I mean, somebody will be mad at me for saying Stanley Kubrick's first couple of films are not the greatest. You know, they're not you got to see this Stanley Kubrick. It'll change your mind. They're a little run of the mill. The Killing. They're just not. They're not like Eyes Wide Shut
Alfred
or
Hitchcock.
2001. Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock started out his first like maybe 10 or 15 films from the 20s were just, you know, a little more run of the mill. He was just developing as a director. That's like, obviously you get a bunch of things when you're in your youth and you're like learning your craft and all that kind of stuff. And some people knock it out of the park like Orson Welles, but most people just like, hey, I made this like these like 10 or 15 things and I didn't hit it until right then. And then that's when you're in your, you know, your prime. So
yeah, John Woo is a guy who his early movies are great, but you can tell that he wanted a bigger budget to do these things with. So then he got the budget, and I guess he did okay. I mean, I love Hard Target. Not a lot of other people do, but I love Hard Target. And then he made Face Off too.
I love Face Off. I'll fight anyone over Face Off.
Well, look, I mean, but he made a ton of films in his hometown in Hong Kong. He made a Better Tomorrow. He made a bunch of incredible films.
I went to a screening of a bunch of those like back to back, and they're awesome. And it's cool to see when you have a director like John Woo who has such a signature style, you can see them work in elements early on.
Totally.
Like you see pictures, you see a lot of slow motion, you see cool stuff, and it's like, oh, he's going to go back to using this material later on, and not necessarily in a better way, but in a bigger budget context. So it's cool to see hallmarks of a director from early on in their career.
I'm going to throw out two genre directors. The first is James Wan. We talk about him a lot, but one of the reasons I like him is because you really can see the progression of a filmmaker from Saw to The Conjuring 2, the evolution of his skill set, but still, like you were saying, remaining true to who he is. You can see the color schemes are still very James, or the way, you know, the quirky dialogue, or these quirky characters like Billy the Puppet, or the lipstick demon in Insidious. And then the other one I wanted to mention is Adam Wingard. So Adam Wingard, I was not a fan of his early films, and I was not even a fan of You're Next, which I think put him on a lot of people's more mainstream radar. But, you know, from what he did with The Guest and The Outcast pilot and maybe The Woods, which maybe I've seen.
You've seen it?
Maybe.
Maybe I'm jealous.
And maybe it's freaking awesome.
Wow.
But the point I'm making is just that the evolution of Adam Wingard is obvious, and I love watching it. I think these two guys are getting better and better with each movie.
Very nice, and we're getting so good that that's our only Twitter question of the day. We knocked it out of the park right off the bat. That's what you call a walk-off in sports, Jon Schnepp.
Hey.
Thank you guys so much for joining us here today on Collider Movie Talk. I want to thank everybody both behind the table and up front here on the panel with me. First of all, before we go to Jon Schnepp, we're going over to Wendy Lee. Where can everybody find you on Twitter?
Oh, cool. You can find me at Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Wendy Lee Zaney.
I never forget anything 2 days in a row. Jon Schnepp, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram, just at Jon Schnepp. You can find me in Florida, Miami, Florida, for this weekend for 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Wait a sec. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Hold on a second.
4 days.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That's it. I was like, yeah, wait a second. It's 4 days, but it's not Thursday. So yeah, Florida SuperCon is happening. Me and Halle will be out there. We got our The Death of Superman Lives Blu-rays. We're doing a bunch of panels. It's going to be crazy, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And watch Heroes today. It's going to be popping off for like 4 or 5 o'clock. We got a great panel today. Collider Heroes.
Check him out in Miami. Tell Dan Marino I said hi. Clarke Wolfe, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Periscope at Clarke Wolfe, Clarke with an E, Wolfe with an E, and on Collider Nightmares with some of these lovely folks on Tuesdays, every Tuesday here on Collider Video. If you are into genre, even if you're not into genre, you might enjoy our show, so please check it out.
It's a great show, and I had a lot of fun on it last week. I said next week. I'm going to be on next week. Maybe I'll get invited back sometime.
Yeah, you will.
We'll have to wait and see. Ashley Mova, where can everybody find you?
On Twitter and on Instagram at Ashley Mova. Happy Wednesday, guys.
And I am merely Mark Ellis at Mark Ellis Live. Make sure you guys check out amctheaters.com. That's where you go for all the latest box office and Showtime ticket information. And go to collider.com. That's where we go for a lot of our movie news stories. You guys can go there anytime. Bookmark it on your web browser right now. And, of course, subscribe right here, Collider Video, for all the latest in movie talk and a lot of other great stuff, like the movie Trivia Schmodown, where I will be competing against JTE this Friday. I'm going to make him remember why it hurts if you leave the schmoes. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Mark. We'll see you next time.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.